is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Would you mind telling me what this is all about?
Well, let's get back to it.
Tourists in Barcelona face a swimming pool ban as Catalonia is facing its worst drought ever. A low water table caused by a lack of rainfall in the Spanish region has seen drastic restrictions imposed on the city. The new measures include, but are not limited to, a ban on washing cars and watering public gardens, except for the use of recycled water. Oh. Water that's already been cycled.
Disgusting.
Farmers have been advised to reduce their water consumption by as much as 80%, as well as cut the use in livestock by half. Poor cows. Officials have been forced to consider shipping in water, with the Iberian Peninsula estimated to be at its driest for over 1,200 years. Meanwhile, over here, not so much. Weather experts yet, have warned that the UK is likely facing the stormiest winter on record as in ever. We've already faced 10 named storms, with over half of the season still to go. The storm season begins in September, and there are usually about 6 or 7 storms in a year. Since storm naming was introduced in 2015, the furthest through the list the group's got is number 11. We're already up to 10, and we're only halfway through the season. Still, it's not as though this is exactly what scientists predicted when they started yelling about climate change. But don't worry, none of the effects of climate change will affect you if you don't believe in science. And in the meantime, it's going to get frosty. A blast of cold air from the north is expected to bring snow back to the UK next week. Snow?
Oh, no.
Experts warned that snow will fall in Scotland and even potentially down south as cold air makes its way over here from Norway. Yeah, thanks a lot, Norway. See what you've done?
No.
Temperatures will fall as low as 0 degrees in parts of Scotland land. That's towards the end of next week. And before that, a yellow weather warning for rain has been issued across parts of Scotland from Sunday to Monday in Central, Tayside and Fife, Highlands and Strathclyde areas. Wherever they are. Saturday, cloudy and mildy, patchy and rainy, mostly in the west. Mostly. Well, the northwest, I bet. Cloudy and mildy and patchy and rainy. In the northwest. I mean, I could check on that while you wait, but really, what's the point? But just for giggles... Well, it's raining at the moment in Glasgow. Don't ring and tell me it isn't, because it is. Apps say otherwise. The rain will continue on Saturday, and it'll be raining on Sunday, and raining on Monday, and raining on Tuesday, and... What? Not raining on Wednesday? Pfft, rubbish. Raining on Thursday, and raining on Friday, and... Blimey, 3 whole days in a row of sun. Can you believe that?
No.
Well, I'll believe it when we get there. How does that sound? So that's Glasgow. Your details in full. Would you like to hear the long-range forecast for the next 2 weeks?
No.
I mean, I would say 4 weeks, but it's not that great in 4 weeks, so we'll just cut it at 2. So this is the forecast till the middle of the month. At first, unsettled with cloud and rain, but mild to the south. Then, a change will bring cold conditions all across the UK, with wintry showers followed by temperatures potentially recovering to around average. Temperatures could potentially recover to around average? We'll take it. Ahmed says, can we cancel the joke side of your programmes until our king has fully recovered from his stay in hospital? Would you be so jovial if your great leader Corbyn had been under the knife? I'm tired of your wokey-cokey, he says.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, you and me both. I can't stand it anymore. Carol says, is there an addition to the Tory party's 5 families with the talk of the evil plotters? Are they too busy forming a circular firing squad to govern the country? Well, they're too busy doing something. I have absolutely no idea what it is. But if they wouldn't mind awfully stopping anytime soon, that would be super. Can we go back to square one with the Labour Party? Just asking for a friend. I hope that doesn't put me on any sort of governmental list. That doesn't go on my permanent record, does it?
Yes.
Oh, well, bound to happen sooner or later. The 5 families. Like a Fisher-Price Sopranos.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The 5 families. Yeah, they were in the army and they weren't trained to lose. Yeah, those people. We're going to make you an offer you can't refuse. It's going to make us an offer we can't understand. Archie texts, does anybody else remember being told to just believe harder? Whatever happened to that fella? Yeah, I can't think. Any idea, Bodge?
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, I think it was mostly him. Should we start there then? Okay. Oh, well, there's a worryingly keen caller, and I always hesitate. If the caller is there right at the very start of the programme, I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm thinking, oh, all right then. Chelsea? Mark?
Hi.
Yes, Mark? That was a much better caller than I was expecting. I was, frankly, expecting the worst, and I think, all in, it worked out for everybody. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Rachel says, I was enjoying listening to the so relaxing Classic FM breakfast show this morning when the new presenter Dan Walker played Vivaldi's Concerto for Lute in D major. Nonsense. There's no such thing. Unfortunately, Rachel continues, unfortunately, such was the melody all the way through it. All I could hear was Uncle Nige saying, I'm a nutcase. Well, what's Vivaldi's Concerto for Lute in D major when it's at home? Is that Everyone's a Fruit and Nutcase? Crazy for those Cadbury's nuts and raisins. Is it that one? Have I got that right?
I don't know.
You don't know? I thought that's what you did in there, listen to Classic FM all the time.
Perpetually, it's all I ever do. It's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, right now. So I have no idea what Vivaldi's Concerto for Lute in D major sounds like, or what the previous one in C major sounded like. I've got absolutely no idea. But Viv was a great bloke, and he knew a tune. It's sort of ruined that. It's of course it's not Vivaldi's Concerto for Lute in D major. It's from that swan thing. You know, the thing with the swans. Swan Lake. You know, the thing with the swans. Swan Lake, idiot. Yeah, isn't it from Swan Lake? Everyone's a Fruit and Nutcase. Ruined that song. Or actually, I don't know about ruined. Enhanced, perhaps, would be a better way of putting it. And every time that you go to that concert, because it's on all the blooming time, then you should feel free to sing loudly at that point, because the performers will love it. That's just a fact. Crazy for those Cadbury's nuts, and stand up while you're doing it. Lucy says, is it time to make a pack of happy family cards to present the 5 factions of today's Tory party? I did have a list of the 5 factions, but I think I convulsed in laughter while I was writing them. So I've got detailed files. The question is, can I be bothered to look through them for it? And I'm thinking the answer is no.
No.
It's a no from me. John says, don't go back to square one. It's such a rubbish campaign for Titchy, the slogan. I would advise a more inspirational catchphrase, such as This doesn't make any sense, but it made me laugh anyway. One small suit for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Well, the first part is the amusing bit, and the second part you just sort of shoehorned in there and it make no sense. I mean, if you just put the full stop there after one small suit for a man, then that would have done just fine. And we could have made up the rest of it in our own minds. Yeah, back to square one. Who came up with that and thought that that was a winning slogan? That is absolutely rubbish, because I bet that it's not just me. Every time you hear that, you think, yeah, OK, that'd be great. Can we do that straight away? Can we do it right now? Can we go back to square one with the Labour Party? Can we do it without delay, immediately, as in now? And the sort of the smug, self-satisfied way in which he delivers that phrase, where he bounces up and down Prime Minister's questions. He'll bounce up and say some supercilious, smug thing. Like somebody will have asked him a long and detailed question, and he'll go up and say, "No, Mr. Speaker," and then he'll squeeze his tiny bottom back onto that giant green leather shelf. Like he's firing himself at it. He's the Prime Minister of this country. Can you believe that?
No.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
Simon says, sometimes the simple and obvious solutions are the least employed. Has anyone ever thought about sitting Fishy down and saying to him, look, nobody likes you, they don't like your party, and it's time to just stop? Well, I do believe that every single one of those panel shows that is made up of politicians has a moment in it when the audience bursts into spontaneous applause when somebody says, it's about time that you lot just packed up. Come in, number 13, your time is up. And the audience would just go crazy. You know, like Madonna had just walked onto the stage.
Rock and roll!
And the Conservative member of that panel just talks through that applause as though it's not happening. Or they'll say something like, well, you know, under our regime, the NHS has never been so well funded. And the audience will start booing them. And they pretend like it's not happening. It's absolutely amazing. The thickness of skin that is involved there, I mean, it's barely human. It's like rhinoceros level thickness. I don't know whether they, maybe it's the private schooling that has given them a taste for punishment. They love a bit of it. And, but they keep, it's almost as though they are playing the sort of, the put upon card. Oh, why are you being so mean to me? It's just extraordinary to watch, really, and it's as though they're living in a parallel universe where up is down and black is white and boo is hooray. Hip hip?
Boo!
Yeah, exactly. Martin says, if expulsion to Rwanda works for foreigners, who knows when they might deport a Brit Nick in error. A Brit Nick in error. What? If expulsion to Rwanda works for foreigners, who knows when they might deport a Brit Nick in error. In error. Should in error be in inverted commas? To denote that it's not really in error, that they're deliberately doing it. How much has that cost us already? I mean, you know, we're into 10, 12, how many figures? 11? I don't know. I've stopped counting telephone numbers. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds, and so far, nothing. Not a bean. People in Rwanda like the government there, must wake up laughing. Want to get rich quick? Simply strike a deal with His Majesty's government. Tom says, that's the second time now that you have sung something from the Nutcracker and then said it was from Swan Lake. Well, Swan Lake, Nutcracker, it's all the same, isn't it? It's all people harumphing around a stage in tutus. It's a no-no from me. Swan Lake is far too dark to have that silly tune in it. Get an education, says Tom. I will not. I don't want to, and you can't make me. Jan, I mean, I put all that stuff in the not really very interested file, along with opera. Boring! Oh, could it be any more painful? Well, it could be more painful if the people singing opera would galumph about on a stage in a tutu. I mean, that would be awful. I draw the line there. Jan says, rugby, the sport you always skipped at school, has now been found by experts to be child abuse. What do you think of that? Says Jan. I'm sure they didn't say child abuse, did they? I mean, it might cause, they did, says the message from next door. Well, in what way is it child abuse, apart from it being just awful to play?
So it's really, really bad for your brain to be
mental health.
taking those kinds of impacts.
Right.
Even at a very low level in terms of playing at school.
Yeah,
etc.
quite right too. Do you want to take up boxing or something like that? Or just, hitting your head on a wall? 0345 6060 973. Let's have Kent, Maidstone. Hello, Joan.
Hello there, Nick. Look,
Hello there, Joan.
I want to put out to your public that the parties are not the same. I was born in 1931.
1931.
Yep, so that makes me...
Yes.
Yep, so that makes me 93 next month.
Wow.
And what happened was the Tories were just as horrible today then as they are today.
Yes.
People were suffering, kids were starving, everybody was going hungry.
The plan was working, yes.
Pardon?
Or as the regime would say,
yeah.
the plan is working.
Yeah, and they had rickets then, as they have now, the kids. And as soon as I was a mum of 2 toddlers, when, thank heavens, Labour came in, they said to the Americans, they said, thank you for being so kind in lending us all that money. Sorry, you'll have to wait a wee while. They put that on the back burner. They started the National Health, and the prefab houses sprang up like mushrooms where there'd been the bombing and everything else. And we had free orange juice, free nurseries, free family planning, the lot. And so I cannot understand these people. We had so much given to us, and, we were in amazing, having witnessed myself personally what it was like. Cannot understand these people, honestly.
No, I don't either. What I can't understand from the Tory perspective is that they don't think we have a memory that goes back further than 14 years. Like, we can't recall what it was like to call up a GP and be able to see him or her sexist that day.
Yeah, the same, and they came to the house. They actually came to the house then. And we had cottage hospitals then as well, which was beautiful, which was wonderful. And we had everything. The schools, great schools. Don't forget we'd been bombed and everything else.
Yeah, things were better when bombs were falling from the sky. The good old days.
It got all those things to rebuild. We retooled the factories.
Yeah.
And there was Clement Attlee, and there was another Attlee. No, not Attlee. The word's gone out. Anyway, but we had really good people striving there to make a better world for everyone.
Well, that sounds like a revolutionary concept, doesn't it? Good people striving to do their best by this country. I mean, wow, who could even imagine such a thing?
Yeah. And it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But all the time, it was just like turning from a black and white picture into pure Technicolor. Pure Technicolor.
Yeah. As opposed to marionation, which is what we had with this lot.
This government.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we had plenty of fruit and vegetables.
Popped out of Thunderbirds. Except for bananas, Joan. Yes, we have no bananas. Remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
And, it was so amazing. And I cannot, please, Nick, with all your will, with all your power, with all whatever,
yes,
please put it over to those stupid people who say, they're all the same. They're not all the same. They're not all the same.
Yes, I am so tired of hearing that. Oh, they're all the same. What's the point? I'm not going to vote. I mean, you just want to take those people and bash them about the head with a dinner gong.
Yeah.
Joan, I've got to go, but thanks for that. Cheers, my dear. There you are, you see. That put you in your place. Kieran texts, back to square one has a tremendously interesting origin. Well, we'll be the judge of that, Kieran. He says, in the early days of radio broadcasting, the started to cover football matches. To enhance the experience for listeners, the Radio Times published a rectangle representing a football pitch and divided the squares between 1 and 8. That makes sense so far? A bit. As the ball moved up and down the pitch, the commentator would say, for instance, and from square 3 to square 7, Fulham move forward. When a move ended with a lame back pass to the goalie, the commentator would say, and it's back to square 1. Which unintentionally became a catchphrase for the period. Interesting but true, says Kieran. Could be true. Who knows? We don't really deal in facts on this show, but thanks anyway, Kieran. Appreciate it. 0345 6060 973. Why are some of these in blue, by the way?
I don't have good answers for you on that one, boss man.
Because some are in black and white, and some of these texts, like the last one, for instance, is in blue. I mean, it's quite a fetching colour, but not my shade. It's got a bit too much black in it. I think, could you put more red in that blue? Sort of, warm it up a bit. Crying out loud. It's blooming freezing outside. Pressure I have to work under. I have to do, like, colour matching to this show now. Cullen, Derek.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
Yes, Derek. Good, thanks.
Good. Speaking about colour, I'm surrounded by colour.
Mm-hmm.
You might remember that I said that I was wanting to immortalise you in wool on my Cullen tapestry.
No.
No, I didn't think you would remember, because you know, listen to that show.
No. When was that?
I've been working on it since 2020, so it's coming up for 4 years. I've been stitching it.
Oh, but did you call me 4 years ago?
No, I think it was it was a year ago, I think.
Oh, right, okay. So I thought that you were going to tell me, like, last week, but no, a year ago? Of course I don't remember that.
Anyway, it's not just the tapestry for Cullen and the community, it's also for people who have kept me inspired and entertained and encouraged during the time I've been stitching. So, your fine self is on it.
Now, but what is it, though?
It's a 250-foot long work of stitching.
250 foot long?
Yeah, it's about the same length as 8 buses, I reckon.
Blimey. So what's on it then? What is the nature of this thing?
Well, for a start, it was going to be a decoration for my little boy's bedroom, like Super Mario characters, but it turned it into a storyboard telling the story of the lockdown, and a big thank you to the NHS, and I decided to stitch on some of the businesses of Cullen because they were great during lockdown. They kept everybody going pretty much. So as I said, I've kept it going, but not just the people of Cullen that have kept me inspired, but your people like you, podcasts, What's Your Problem, with Nick and Carl's on there as well.
Ah. So what are you going to do with it?
Well, I don't know. It was on TV last week. It was on TV on Wednesday.
On what?
BBC.
But what was the show?
It was called David and Jay's Touring Toolshed. David, Jason and Jay Blades came to Cullen to
David
see it.
Jason out of this time next year will be a millionaire.
Is it not his birthday today? Was he 84 today?
I have really no idea. But that guy from Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah, and I had no idea we were about to meet him when we were doing the filming.
Yeah.
And the production crew says, we did tell you. And I was like, no, you didn't. I said, David Jason is through there looking at my tapestry. And she's like, yeah. So it's available on the iPlayer.
Right. Well, you know what? I'm going to look it up. What's the name of that show again?
David and Jay's Touring Toolshed. It's episode 8. They didn't really show much of the tapestry because there's a lot of businesses. There's a kind for licensing.
Yeah, plus it's 250 foot long, so.
Yeah. But you can make out Nick Abbot, LBC.
Well, then
there you go.
I'll mark it down in my diary. Excellent work there, Derek. And as soon as
it's all thanks to you. I appreciate your hard work.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, mate.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Everything is going extremely well.
Yeah, you bet your life it is. So I'm just looking at a video of that tapestry that chap was talking about, and it's an amazing-looking thing. Thank you, the NHS. There it is, 2022, and there's a gorilla and Mario and, you know, like gaming things that I don't know the name of, and all sorts of things. It's absolutely huge. So I will investigate further. Appreciate that. 0345 6060 973. Let's have a call in Middlesbrough. Hello, Terry.
Hello there, Nick. Are you well?
Yes, good, thanks.
I was just listening to that Neil Armstrong quote, and it made me think.
Yes.
One small soup for a man, a giant bleep, if you say what you think.
A giant bleep if you say what you think.
That's it.
Right.
Are you suggesting I don't give up the day job?
You have a day job? Right, thanks a lot, Terry. Better luck next time. 0345 6060 973. A listener with material.
Oh,
no. So I was looking up this rugby story. This is from the Standard newspaper, which still exists. I'm stunned. It says, how many pages in the Standard newspaper these days? Because the Standard used to be what people picked up before they went on the tube, just so they would have something to look at to avoid looking at other people in the eye. Because you got nothing to look out the window in the tube, on the tube, in the tube, because, you know, it's just dark out there. You're in a tube. And so otherwise, before the invention of the phone, you'd be just like casting your eyes around and you'd read the adverts above people's heads, and that would take about 30 seconds. And meanwhile, you got another 30 minutes of your journey to go. And every now and again, you would catch somebody's eye. And that you wanted to avoid that at all costs. And so people picked up the Standard, not because they were interested in what it contained, just because it's something to look at while your mind drifts away. To avoid looking at anybody, you know, any strangers in the eye. It was very discombobulating to your average English person. But now, of course, everybody's got the whole world on their phone, and nobody picks up the paper anymore. How many pages in the Standard? Do you have any idea?
4?
About 4 pages. Exactly right. Yeah, about 4 pages in the Standard.
Maybe 4?
4. Quite right, Donny. So anyway, one of them was about rugby. Rugby being played in schools is a form of child abuse, and the game should be banned among under 18s, the study has claimed. Well, never mind about that. The game should be just banned, full stop. Because it's dull. I mean, it's not even a game. It's just a bunch of steroidal freaks running into each other. How's that a sport? It says, academics claim that sports organisations are effectively grooming children to avoid the impact of brain injuries associated with playing rugby. They're grooming children to avoid the impact of brain injuries. So I don't really understand that. Schools that have the sport on their curriculum have not sought consent from children who could suffer injuries later in life, according to the study by researchers at the University of Winchester, Nottingham, Trent and Bournemouth. The study, first reported in the Times, cites emerging evidence that even a knock to the head can contribute to brain damage that can cause dementia or Parkinson's. Yeah, I had one of those when I stupidly did a roller coaster in España, the Porto something or other. And I can't remember what it's called because of the injury that I sustained on the roller coaster there. The Porto something or other. Just, I think it's south. It's either north, the south, east or west of Barcelona. I think you'll find that's right. And I went on... first, and it was, had to sort of hold on to something when I got off it, and I thought, that was great, let's do it again. And the second time I got off it, because this was really quite a violent roller coaster, loop the loop and all of that stuff. And the second time I got off it, I thought, ooh, I think I've really done something to my brain. So it's been shaken about. I thought, let's go on again. So I did it 3 times, and I really did feel for quite a long time afterwards that I had injured my brain. But you know me, I never complain.
Stop whining.
More than 200 retired rugby players recently brought a legal claim against 3 of the sport's governing bodies, alleging they suffered brain injuries during their careers. Lawyers for the group of players have previously alleged the governing bodies failed to take reasonable steps to protect players from injury caused by repetitive blows, and that many now have permanent neurological injuries, including early onset dementia, Parkinson's disease, and the neurodegenerative condition chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which I only said to check whether I could say it. But yeah, rugby, I mean, it seems like a cruel and unusual punishment to me. And may actually cause an enfeeblement within certain individuals. Isn't that right, Bodge?
Yeah. Wait a minute.
And there we have it. Evidence. Proof, if proof were needed. Let's have Islington. Hello, Joan.
Hello, Nick. How
yes,
are
Joan.
you?
I am great, mate.
Good. You sound good. You always make me feel happy.
Oh, Happy.
P-Y.
Yes.
I'm ringing up about the Rwanda thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'll be packing a bag soon and moving there. Flying in that plane that's lying empty.
Yeah, it sounds like a great place.
It sounds like a good plan because apparently our government will not give, or their government, Rwanda government, will not be giving the money back to us.
No chance.
So what I've heard is they're doing wonderful things. They're going to redo the roads. They're going to build up schools, education, the health service, housing, all the things we should be doing.
Yeah, I very much doubt that any of that money will go on any of those things that you've just described. I think they've probably spent it all on comics and sweets.
I think what will happen is beyond all big houses, big cars, maybe, a lot of other things.
In Paris, they'll buy a couple of big houses in Paris and a fleet of Rolls Royces to take them between them,
Definitely money for the big boys, and I don't know why I can't get my head around the figure of that 200 and something odd million that we sent the country.
Well, the Rwandans, they just think up a number and double it and add a zero on the end. and they think the Brits are such mugs and they're wedded to this policy. Bizarrely, they sort of bet the farm on it, so we can charge them anything we blooming well like and give them nothing in return.
Yeah, it's like a big lot of fuss about absolutely nothing. And the money that's gone out there, we could have done with that.
Correct. Mundo,
would it be nice to spend some of that on our schools and everything else? And no, but the elderly lady that spoke previously, she really made me think about, and I mean, I'm not as old as her, but she made me think of the old days and how, how good it was it must have been great for the people to see the country being built up the way it was.
Right.
But now we're watching it all going down the drain.
Yes. It's like somebody's stopped the tape and they're playing it in reverse.
It is, and let's go back to square one.
Back to square one. Yeah.
As you say, that makes me smile. I think we deserve it.
Well, I'll see you on that square, Joan.
Yeah.
Cheers, minute. Bring sandwiches. 0345 6060 973. Rebecca says, now that Labour's joining the Tories and letting the planet burn, do you think the Greenies will put sunscreen factor 50, a duffel coat, taller wellies in their manifesto? Do you think the Greenies will put sunscreen factor 50, a duffel coat and taller wellies in their manifesto? That almost makes sense, Rebecca. Almost, but not quite. Yeah, the Labour Party are getting it in the neck now for not making precise promises about how much money they're going to spend and where they're going to spend it before they get into power and see how much money we've actually got. Which, by the way, is approximately zero. We have a minus £2.5 trillion. But they would be nuts to actually ditch the whole thing, and there's no evidence that they are going to do such a thing. It's just that the commitment is not set in stone, as it can't actually be. I mean, just to be fair to them, they can't make precise commitments and probably shouldn't have put a number on it before they've managed to find out precisely how much we've actually got. To find out precisely how much the Tories have salted the earth on their retreat, because they most certainly will be doing just that. 0345 6060 973. Clive says, with more Brexit benefits starting this month, further checks and yet more red tape, I've been trying to embrace Brexit by introducing a selection of Brexit-themed products. My ideas are the big book of Brexit benefits, containing over 1,000 empty, totally blank pages. I think somebody's beaten you to that. I think that's actually a thing. And tins of Brexit, he says, tins of Brexit sovereignty. Tins of Brexit sovereignty, containing absolutely nothing. How can I not say the word sovereignty when just moments ago you heard me say with my own mouth, neurodegenerative chronic traumatic encephalopathy?
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Are you trying to be funny? Because I'm all out of laughs.
No, there's nothing funny about it. Darryl texts, you keep whining about the Tories having borrowed an extra £1.5 trillion with nothing to show for it. But that isn't very much money, as surely a trillion is only 3 times the size of a million. The clue is in the name. Just ask Nadeem Zahawi, he'll splain it to you.
And 1,
yes.
2,
3,
6 million.
No. He said, Darryl says he is very highly educated. He knows numbers. He has the best numbers. He just wants me to play this.
I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words.
And I won't do it. Adrian says Fish's party slogan should be, it's my party and I'll blame who I want to. Close. That's close to being good. Rob says Titchy has to bounce up from a seated position because his legs don't reach the floor from a seated position. He can't actually get out from the green bench unless he bounces. Well, that's just a fact. He has to hurl himself towards the dispatch box. He launches himself through space to say, yes, Mr. Speaker. Orpington. Hey, Ray.
Hi there, Nick. Hi. I mentioned about reading the Evening Standard in years gone by and trying to avoid people looking at you.
Yes.
Well, I was on the Underground, Northern Line, and I was coming home from work. This was years ago. And I was reading the Evening Standard. Mm-hmm. And there was a passenger sitting next to me, a man sitting next to me, and he was reading my paper as I was reading it. And as I was turning the page, he was like leaning further and further into my space.
Yeah, because he hadn't finished reading the bit that you were turning over. Yeah.
So I suddenly noticed that he was leaning completely across my field of vision, and as I was turning the page, he was like moving his head backwards and forwards. It was almost as if it was conjoined. So I suddenly snapped, Nick. I suddenly snapped. And what I did was I kind of like thought of a Venus flytrap. And what I did was I actually wrapped his head up in the newspaper.
Well,
and I wrapped it up so hard.
That's probably not a good idea there, Ray. You had me right up until the wrapped his head in a newspaper part. And then I'm deciding not to believe anything further. But good effort. 0345 6060 973. Don't wrap anybody's head up in newspaper on a tube or any other place, for that matter, unless you have their written permission. Liz texts, I was happy to see politicians encourage youngsters by allowing work experience, even if they have to wear their school uniform, but I think it's time for his mum to come and pick him up now. Yeah, I mean, this is all, it's slightly amusing, but it's just plain rude. Which I normally would not, I would not allow that on this programme, as you know, full well. But in his case, I'm going to make an exception. Martin says, it's a bit rich, Nick. A week last Tuesday, at the drop of a hat, Sunak decided that he would draft 150 judges to fast-track Rwanda migrant appeals and pay the judges even more to work evenings and weekends. Money no object then, Titch? It's absolutely asinine, this whole thing. I mean, where's he going to get the judges from? We haven't got enough judges as it is. We don't have the courts for them. I mean, if you have been the victim of a serious sexual assault, you can wait absolutely years for your case to come up. I mean, like 4 years. So where's he going to magic all of these judges from? And that he's even contemplating such a thing is just an indication of how very desperate they are to cling on to any vestige of power that they can. And you'd have to think, why? After 14 years of total control, have they not done everything that's on their list yet? What is it that they haven't managed to achieve that they're still keen to do? Fix some of the problems that they caused would be a good idea, but I very much doubt that that's on their to-do list. That's not their number one priority.
It's the country's number one priority.
It isn't. It just isn't. Pete says the theme park you went to in Spain was Port Aventura. That's right. Was the roller coaster... Was the roller coaster called Furious Bacco? I went on it and I got flung all over the place too, says Pete. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was Yellow, if that's any help. It was, and for ages afterwards I felt that I had actually done myself some internal damage. But you know me, I never complain.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
And I only went on there 3 times because there was no queue, because it was sort of off-peak, off-season. And it was one of those snaking back and forth lines, you know, that looks like it's a short distance, but actually takes you 3 hours to negotiate. But there wasn't anybody there. You just waltzed straight up onto an empty car, and you got in and off you went. So I thought, well, I'll get good value for money on this. And I've done myself, internal injuries. And hence, I'm a radio talk show host. Let's have a call in Winchester. Simon.
Good evening.
Yes, Simon.
A couple of things. Mm-hmm. The amount, the 2 trillion that they've added to the national debt. Now, I'm just plucking figures out of the air here. I may be wrong, but surely for that amount of money, in 14 years, they could have rebuilt every school. Mm. They could have given everybody a universal basic income.
Yeah.
They could have upgraded and improved every single property in the country.
We could all have our own hospital.
Well, yeah. They could have done everything.
They could have fixed the entire country such that it needed fixing no further. It could have been the absolute best place. It could have been run as clockwork like Disneyland, and instead the catastrophe that we see before us has cost us over £2 trillion, and nobody can figure out in the slightest way where any of that money has gone. The assumption is that it's just gone to their mates and donors.
Yeah. And the other thing is a question that I posed originally. So let's assume that Starmer wins the next election and then goes gangbusters on all the left-wing policies that I believe he believes in.
Well, what evidence is there for that, though? I mean, I don't want to pause you mid-thought, but what evidence is there that he has a lot of left-wing policies that he's hankering after following?
All right, let's assume that he does.
Okay.
So he then gets to work with his little army beavering away and begins to sort out all our problems to a degree that will upset the most mildest of Reform UK voters. But
it wouldn't really, because their lives would improve if the health service was better, for instance, and if schools were better, their lives would improve. But they might not like it. The direction of travel, but it would be hard to deny that their lives have improved. It's just that they wouldn't admit that it would be the Labour Party that's done it for them.
Yeah. Well, let's take those out of the equation, because they're idiots and they don't matter.
Well, there's no evidence to say that they're idiots.
We've got a few idiots in our party.
Apart from that.
Have you noticed, by the way, before I carry on my thought, have you noticed that thing I mentioned the other week about Richard Boyce's tongue?
I don't recall what that was. I didn't know he had a son.
Tongue, as in...
his tongue.
Yeah. He looks like he's trying to lick a stamp that keeps getting away from him.
No, I had not noticed that. But then as a point of order, I just turn off everything that he's on, so I don't really spend too much time in his company.
Jeremy Vine, actually, this week was... don't worry, I still want to finish my thought. But
well, you'll have to hurry up, though, because we've only got 30 seconds left.
Okay.
I'll get
Jeremy
straight to
Vine
that for you.
Jeremy Vine was trolling him this weekend, this week on the telly, and it was great. So let's assume that Starmer is the answer. He gets to power, upsets the right, sorts out the country, but he's run on this platform of changing his policies to please Tories, right? Mm-hmm. And he's stuck to it religiously. Does that make him a manipulative liar or a genius?
Well, that very much depends on where you're coming from and going to, I suppose. I mean, if he gets into power by telling us the things that we want to hear, then that'd be great. But I don't think he will get into power even if he tells us things that we want to hear that aren't true. I think the fundamental reason that he will get into power is because we can't stand the status quo anymore. It's not necessarily for him that he will ride in on a wave of support. It's that the wave of support is flushing what's in there out the back. That's the it of it, I think. But good work there, Simon. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
This is absolute tosh.
Right, so what we doing?
Given we're doing a radio show, but it does remind me I do a podcast with Carol McGiffin.
Oh, right, yeah.
Now, it's twice a week now. It's a podcast of assistance. It's a festival of assistance. If you have a dilemma that you wish us to have a bash at, then you must send it to the following address, nickandcarol@global.com. nickandcarol@global.com. Prepare for total satisfaction.
Oh, right, yeah.
Ask for it by name on an internet near you. What's your problem with Nick and Carol? Comes out Mondays and Fridays? Yeah, Mondays and Fridays. I know, Mondays and Fridays. It's on Global Player. If you haven't got Global Player, you can get it free from your App Store or globalplayer.com. You'll love it. 0345 6060 973. Merthyr Tydfil. Hello, Jeff.
Hello there, Nick.
Yes, Jeff.
Well, what a fabulous phone call you've had tonight from the 93-year-old.
Yes.
Remembering what it was like.
I know, you could plug her into the national grid and we wouldn't need solar power.
They're on about square one. These peanuts.
I cannot believe they're still repeating that, because they must know that the rest of us, when they say, "Oh, otherwise we were," God, my mouth just stopped working there for a moment. It got caught up, tripping over myself. Okay. When they say back to square one, they must know that we all think, let's do that straight away. Please, can we do that?
Yeah, well, square one to me is the birth of the national health and my birth. And we coincided. I'm a baby boomer. Yeah. And what I've seen in that time is I don't remember the Labour Party being in with Attlee, where the whole of that foundation of the welfare state was made. But I lived through the 50s, and I can tell you that I saw boys going to primary school with the toes cut out of their Wellingtons because they couldn't afford shoes.
Wow. So they grown, their feet were too big for their Wellingtons, so they cut holes in the...
Yeah.
Really?
And the conditions they live in, you talk about black mold today.
Yeah.
The conditions they lived in. And And to be fair to the Tories, in the 50s, they continued with that welfare state, and they allowed local authorities to create these massive housing estates, which transformed them. Now, I remember those kids living in absolute poverty, and they were nice kids. They were gentle. They weren't thugs or anything like that. They were just people living in absolute poverty, and I could describe it to you at great length. But what happened was that they transformed when they went to these housing estates. They became successful. They became wonderful contributors to society. They were absolutely wonderful.
Well, as compared to what? You're saying that they went to these housing estates, but where were they before?
Well, they were living in these housing slums, they were called.
Okay.
And they were absolutely...
Like tenements?
You would not believe it. And they became something else. They were transformed. Now, what happened, I think, in that period, Thatcher came. And
Correct.
She allowed the sale of those...
Of everything.
Houses to, if you were occupying it. And they fell for that, and they bought them all. And that was the start of the collapse of the welfare state. It was a body blow that they never recovered from. And those houses that were supposed to be sold to the local authority would have the money for them. They were then intending to build more with that, and nobody ever did it. And that was the start of the rot. And in 40 years, we are back to square one where I kicked off.
Yes. It's remarkable when you see pictures and videos of something as relatively recent as the 1950s, and I'd say the 70s, and perhaps even the 80s as well. This country, it almost looked like a third world country. Nothing worked at all. I mean, people complain that nothing works now. Try jaunting back to the 1970s to see things not working.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that when they breezily talk about square one, square one is really 1945, 1946. It was year zero in many ways that the UK had to rebuild itself.
Yes, I don't think that's what they're thinking when they say square one. They're not talking about all the way back to the 1940s and 50s. They're talking about back to 13, 14 years ago.
Exactly.
When everything in this country was justifiably and measurably better. The things that are important to us. I mean, we still had our libraries, and we still had the council swimming pools, and we still had people who could care for people outside of hospital, and there were still hospital beds available if you needed one, and a GP was on the end of the phone, and everything worked better than it does now. So when they say, let's be aware of going back to square one, what they're talking about is the day that the Tories took over. But that's just a mad thing for them to say. The Labour Party should be saying something like that. Let's go back to square one. That should be the Labour Party's slogan, not the Tories. Exactly. It doesn't work for the Tories at all.
That's the point I'm making. It's exactly the point. The square one really should be 1946.
Yeah.
And it's the Labour Party's pitch. It's not the Tories.
Yes.
The Tories, this bunch of lunatics. They've destroyed the UK. They actually destroyed it in 2.45 trillion. You're bankrupt.
But they're not. But by saying that they're lunatics, rather, I think misunderstands the plan that this amorphous thing that they keep mentioning. The plan, without telling us what the plan actually is. I think that it's not going badly. The plan is going really well. They're all incredibly rich, much richer than they used to be. What else do you need to know?
Exactly. Yeah, all right, you don't need to know.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Keep alert, always. Colin says, sounds like you need Elon Musk to implant a Neuralink brain chip. Yeah, he said that he has planted a chip in somebody's brain. Have we seen evidence that that is the case? Because they've tried that with multiple animals, poor things. And as far as I'm aware, it didn't go very well. As you would expect. I mean, why would it? how does a chip actually communicate with your brain anyway? Don't ask me. It's probably just way too complicated. But he keeps saying that he's put a brain chip in a human person without actually showing us the evidence that is the case. So I'll believe it when I see it. Rose says, Joan was thinking of Aneurin Bevan, the architect of free medicine and the NHS, and very erudite, having started work down the mines at aged 13, but educated himself by reading books. You remember books, don't you?
No.
Reading books from the library. You remember libraries, don't you?
No.
He and Attlee were men of quality, says Rose. Profiteering was nowhere on their radar. They were hundreds of miles from the flibbertigibbets who have... Well, you don't often see that word written down or said out loud. They were hundreds of miles from the flibbertigibbets who have found their way into high office now to the ruination of all. Yeah, but not them, though, Rose. They're doing just fine. It's the rest of us poor dopes who pay taxes that are suffering. And just when you thought that the Tories had sold absolutely everything that we used to own to their mates and their donors, they have managed to find a way to turn it up to 11. They've managed to find stuff that we haven't sold yet for a quick short-term profit that none of us poor taxpayers will actually see. I mean, somebody will have a quick short-term profit, just not us. If I tasked you with thinking what could they possibly sell off that they haven't sold already, you'd be casting around thinking, I don't know, air? Everything else is gone. Margaret Thatcher gave away, and by the way, a certain age of person cannot say that word without saying it in the following way. Margaret Thatcher gave away our electricity and gas, and by gave away I mean gave away, at a knockdown price to favoured recipients under the guise of making us all shareholders. You know, tell Bill. Yeah, right, sure. Margaret Thatcher gave away our electricity and gas. Subsequent Tory governments have given away everything else. Council homes, post office, our water. Water! We're the only country on earth ever to sell off its most valuable asset. Water. And if you think valuable, not so much. But we could do without gold. You could go years without gold. How long could you go without water? It's when you don't have it that you realise the value of it. And by the time the Tories got rid of Thatcher, she'd been responsible for about £60 billion of state assets flogged off for a song to foreign wealth funds and hedge funds and bankers and various offshore tax-averse institutions that you better not ask too many questions about, or you'll find yourself on some sort of list. So what to do when a Conservative party that seems to think that conserving is a dirty word finds that the cupboard is bare? Well, just open another cupboard. They've spent the last 14 years systematically underfunding councils. It's pretty much their one big trick, and they pull it over and over and over again. Rob an institution of its funding, then blame that institution for not being able to cope. And then come up with the genius idea that they should sell off what's left that they have not been forced to sell already. And that's where we are now. The plan is working. Councils in England are being encouraged to sell publicly owned buildings and other assets worth up to £23 billion under plans being explored by ministers to plug budget shortfalls amid the crisis in local government, a crisis that has been orchestrated by central government. Under plans being examined by Michael Gove's Department for Levelling Up Housing. You know Michael Gove, don't you?
Bill!
Yeah, that's him. Under plans being examined by Michael Gove's Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, councils would be given greater flexibility to use money raised from asset disposals to meet their budget pressures. Pressures that only exist because the Tory government has engineered them. Ministers estimate that councils have investment properties worth £23.2 billion, which could be disposed of to help meet budget shortfalls with proposed changes to the rules that would allow sales without government approval. So the idea is to sell off the things that we used to rely on, pretty much the only things that we got left. And I bet at least one of these things has been shut down in your area over the last 13 years. Swimming pools, libraries, town halls, that sort of thing. Flog them off for a song to patch up the budget for this year, and to hell with next year because they'll be out of office then. Dozens of councils have already earmarked libraries, civic halls, swimming pools and community centres for sale to raise hundreds of millions of pounds, including but not limited to Leeds, Kent, Somerset and Woking. But property experts warned the moment to sell could hardly be worse amid a slump in the market driven by near stagnant growth in the UK economy and higher borrowing costs from the Bank of England. But when it's worse for you to sell, that means it's an excellent time for you to buy, because everything in this country has a for sale sign on it. Stocks, property, everything. And you'd have to say that it's because of two things. I'm going to say the B word. Oh, no. Brexit. And the T word. The Tories. Property experts warned that the moment to sell could hardly be worse. They said, if you are Matt Oakley, head of UK and European commercial property research at the leading estate agent Savills, said if you were trying to identify the worst moment to sell, the first half of this year would probably be it. But hey, what does Matt Oakley, head of UK and European commercial property research at the leading estate agent Savills, know about European commercial property? He says a potential buyer will say, they have to sell this. How little can I get away with paying them for it? I wouldn't advise anyone to sell now just because there is a hint of blood in the water, which is perfect hunting ground for the sharks of the financial racket, who, by coincidence, are donors to the Conservative Party. It's all about the money, honey. So keep that in mind if your council sells off property, that this is the worst time to sell, but a brilliant time to buy if you want to buy on the cheap. The Institute for Public Policy Research think tank last year found 75,000 public assets worth about £15 billion have already been sold by English councils since the Tories took over to plug holes in their budgets, which have been caused by the Tories. That they keep doing it over and over again with tremendous success and keep it just is remarkable. I mean, it's so simple and so transparent and obvious what they're doing, but they keep getting away with it. Tell me that that is not what's happened to the NHS, that they have deliberately underfunded it to the point that now people just think, oh, to hell with it, I'll go private. The Institute for Public Policy Research think tank last year found 75,000 public assets worth $15 billion have been sold already. Zoe Billingham, director of the Institute, said it's one-off capital receipt to fund ongoing revenue pressures. It's one-off capital receipt to fund ongoing revenue pressure. Well, she's probably got a giant brain. She's speaking in words that I can't understand. Well, not in that order, anyway. She says it'll last for as long as they have buildings to sell. I don't think it's a good thing. It's not a fix. No, it's a bandage. It's also a one-way street, she says. Once public assets have been sold, I would be shocked to hear at a future date any council or government will buy them back. It's a temporary fix for a difficult time. It's not sustainable. No, it's pouring salt in the tank of the car before waltzing off and getting into your other vehicle. That's what this is. A Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities spokesmodel said, we are engaging with the sector over options that will allow councils greater financial flexibilities to make savings and better manage their overall budgets. You know, they'd be better to manage their budgets if their budgets were manageable. The Department for Levelling Up. How's that levelling up going, by the way?
Oh, fabulous.
They said, we want to ensure every penny of taxpayer money is well spent. Yeah, good one. They said, we have recently announced an additional 600 million support package. £600 million support package for councils across England, increasing their overall proposed funding for next year to £64.7 billion, a 7.5% increase in cash. And whenever they go into numbers, just let your brain fog over, because you know that anything they say that's got a number in it, or a percentage, or an indication that more is being spent than it ever has been before, even though you feel that it's being run down and defunded, just ignore it all, because it's just playing with numbers. They're just gaslighting you now. It's a lot of noise and numbers signifying nothing. I mean, 600 million won't go too far to fix a problem that's been caused by this regime underfunding councils to the tune of about, £100 billion over the last 14 years. So, you probably want to chain yourself to your swimming pool. And if you can figure out a way to do that, then you are some sort of genius.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Oh, hello.
0345 6060 973. Stu says, a lot of these Eton types play rugby. The damage to the head does explain the present government.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Well, that is a good point, yeah. I mean, it does answer a lot of questions that we've all had. Bodge? Yes. Drizzen texts, DRSN. Drizzen says, I've got it, just one small-suited man and 5 families, cruel and unkind. Is that a slogan for the Tories? That's terrible. That's as bad as your name, Drizzen. Can I interest you in a vowel?
No.
Marchin texts, will you tell us if Donald Trump answered all questions correctly and got an extra point this week? I'm not going to play that. I'm not just a toy for your amusement. Rugby, though. God, absolutely hate it. I hated cricket as well. British sports, apart from football. And even then, not to play. I mean, just, I don't know, just not me. I spent all of the games time, double games on Wednesdays. I spent it with the disreputable lads in school in the basement of a cafe. Putting, I suppose it would have been, God, what would it have been then? 5p in the jukebox. Play that funky music, white boy.
Rock and roll!
Yeah. Sitting there nursing a Coke for a cola for 2 hours. Playing David Bowie, stuff like that. But no, rugby, no, not for me. Martin says, this week the nation breathed a collective sigh of relief as the King and the Wales lady left hospital. It was touch and go for a while, but the fact that they were able to survive this trauma just goes to show how resilient our great country is. Not like those Johnny foreigners. You haven't even mentioned it. A very relieved Martin, says Martin. Yeah, I just think that they were lucky to get to the front of the NHS queue so quick. I mean, it really is extraordinary. Channel 4 did some good work this week about that. They illuminated how much worse the NHS is this year compared to when the Tories took over. And I'll just give you 5 facts. The NHS in England in 2023 compared to 2011. The Tories took over the NHS, and it was one of the shining jewels of this country. People loved it, LUV. Now, not so much. 10 times worse 4-hour waits in A&E. Last year compared to 2011. 10 times worse. 13 times worse 18-week waits for care. Now, if you're waiting for care, then you need it now. To have to wait 18 weeks seems like a cruel and unusual punishment. But that wait is 13 times worse in 2023 than it was in 2011 when the Tories took over. Well, who is paying for that? And by paying, I mean who is responsible? Who is getting a strip torn off them? Cancer waits, 14 times worse. 4-hour trolley waits, 16 times worse. And 12-hour trolley waits, 3,000% worse. Actually, it's more than that. It's 3,000 times worse. It's just incredible, really, isn't it? I mean, I'm just staring at those figures and I'm almost forgetting what I'm actually doing here. I just almost went into like a bit of a silent funk there for a moment. Hey, wake up. Got a show to do. Let's have Cheshire. Hello, John.
Yeah?
Yes, John.
Oh, hi. I can guarantee that the dopes you're on about will vote for the council selling off their own property.
Yes, we do seem to have a large number of people who insist on voting for something that is not in their interests.
We every time we do the same thing, we just sit there and we watch it go on, and we watch it go on, and but I've got a flight to Benidorm booked next week. I don't want to miss that. But that's the attitude we've got.
Are you saying that you have a flight to Benidorm next week, or you just throw that in there as an example? Oh, right, okay.
No, but that's the attitude. Well, I've got my flight to Benidorm next week. I'm not doing anything to upset that. But we just sit there and we cop it. French farmers came out in the last few days.
If any of this stuff had happened in France, then the entire country would be on fire now.
Well, they'd be burning tyres on the motorways and God knows where else. They'd be ripping the place to bits. What's the point of a local government association if all the councils start talking about selling off their own property?
Yeah, it's just incredible what is actually happening in this country. We'll end up, once the Conservative Party have left power, assuming that actually ever does happen and they don't cancel all future elections for our safety, then there won't be any... I mean, it'll be a husk of a country that they will leave behind.
We're not far off that now. I mean...
It does seem as though nothing works. It does seem as though we've become indebted as a nation to such an incredible amount. But it's difficult to understand where the money has gone because nothing works. They haven't spent it on anything that we actually rely on or would appreciate. Where's it gone? What have they done with it?
Where's all the oligarchs?
Right. Well, they're on a boat. They're doing just fine. John, don't you worry about them.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
I just want to tell you all how happy I am to be back in the studio, making a picture again.
It's a radio show, dear. Bob says, I've just heard that Titchy Suit Size has been injured at the PM's weekend retreat at Chequers while abseiling down the skirting boards. Clive says 2 trillion divided by the 66 million people who live in this country, that would be about £30,000 each for every single one of us. Yes, please. Oldbury, Ranjit.
Hi, Nick, you all right?
Yes, good, thanks.
Yeah, you know, have you ever played snooker?
Yes.
Right, you know,
badly,
when you play
really, really badly. It's amazing how big a snooker table is. Have you ever seen a full-size one?
Yeah, I've played. Well, I can hit about an 8 break, sometimes maybe a 10 break. That's about it. Really.
I can hit the table with a pool cue, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well, basically, you know, when you play snooker, you've got to think 2 shots ahead, yeah, or 3 shots ahead.
No.
Okay. But you know,
no,
it's very hard.
You really don't. You're talking about chess, and even then.
Okay. I'm just talking about the principle. So the Tories now are thinking 2 election cycles ahead. Okay, they know they've lost this one.
Yeah.
And then they're thinking of how badly can they make it worse, right? Mm-hmm. So when they start shouting, and they're probably thinking, you know what, Joe Public isn't going to vote for us for at least another 2 elections, so they're making it bad. And that's what Margaret Thatcher was doing back in the 80s, right? So what she did, the sale of the council houses, right? Basically, the problem was people who were working, lived in council houses, could go on strike when they wanted to, and they didn't have any fear of being, made homeless. Okay, because when the employers abused them, we stood up for our rights. So she thought, how can I put a ball and chain onto them and at the same time make money for myself and lots of money for other people like the banks?
Yeah.
So she decided, right, to sell the houses.
Well, that's an interesting take on it. I haven't heard that before. I mean, I've heard that she did it because people who own their own homes have an asset to protect. And they have traditionally, people who fit that description have traditionally voted right-wing. Because, once you've got something, you don't want to share it around. Share it fairly, but don't take a slice of my pie.
Rock and roll! Yeah, okay, we're in agreement on that part. The thing was, the people that were going on strike, you had to move them from the left to the right? So what she done was, by offering for them to buy their houses, let me just kill this one. All right, and basically, right, what would happen is, you've got your Englishman's home is his castle. Suddenly, from being a worker, you're becoming the king. Yeah, that's what you used to think, but you're not really. So if you went on strike and at the bottom of your mortgage agreement says if you don't keep up payments on your house, you will lose it. So she basically got the working class tied up to a deal where someone was selling them house insurance, someone was selling them a mortgage and this, that and the other. So loads of other people made lots of money out of it at the same time. And she sat on that money when, like the other caller said, she should have reinvested it. Okay? So these things, they don't get done in a day. Right? So now what's happening to us? Right, if you have still got any money left or whatever and you watch these programs that late at night, you get these adverts. Do you want to release any...
How many phones have you got there, Ranjit? What kind of an international operation are you running there?
Hang on, no, listen.
Why don't you get one of your people to take that call?
There's nobody left. There's only me now here because everybody's gone on. Right, listen, I can ignore that, right?
Well, I'm finding it difficult, but go on.
No, yeah, basically, right, so, when you watch a program late at night, this is... Have you got assets in your house? Are you 85 years old? We can release the money from your house, yeah? So they want to take that last possible thing that we've got left.
Everything, yeah. Because if you spread a lot of money around a lot of people, then it's not going to improve their lives very much. But if you take a lot of money from a lot of people, then that amounts to a gigantic pile for one person.
Yeah, because some people have escaped this kind of traps, yeah, where they've kept they've kept their noses down, right, and they've worked hard. And these people want to take everything off us now, right? And that's what's going on. And the biggest thing that the Conservatives have done, and they've been very successful at, is creating dinglings where we all hate each other, right? That we don't even...
Yes, we're too busy chasing shadows and these phony wars that they invite us to join, like this whole wokey-cokey thing.
Okie-dokie.
And we're too busy concentrating on that to notice that they're picking our pockets.
Yeah, and I don't think we're ever going to realise it because you look at social media now, right? Then you got people talking about the dinghies, and you got people talking about asylum seekers.
And that's going to get worse and worse and worse. I mean, people are going to be... Because once you show an interest on social media in things like that, then that is what you will see over and over and over again because of the algorithms.
Yeah, and, obviously over some of the things that have happened in London yesterday, was, even people who were quite left-wing, right, have suddenly come over to the centre on asylum, right? And the ones which are...
What is it that person who keeps calling you wants, Ranjit? Do they think that you're still open?
it might be one of your listeners, right, who listen and they say, "Oh, Ranjit, we can hear you on the radio," so I have to kind of ignore them when I'm still in the... Because my wife would have answered the phone, but she's just gone home and I'm about to leave now as well. But anyway, like I say, right, you know, they like a... You know, like these people who were very left-wing, suddenly you bought your council house, you was tied down to a mortgage, and suddenly you become king of the castle.
Right, well, yes, we've been over this...
that's what they're trying to do,
this
that,
land
right?
before. Well, so that's what I'm saying. If you own your property, then it's almost certain, or it used to be, that you became more right-wing. You'd start young... and, you know, open and, you know, full of love for your common man and woman, sexist, and then you become ever more right-wing the more assets you acquire. What's failed to happen this time around for the last generation is that people aren't acquiring assets anymore. You can't afford to buy a house, and you can't, and your rent's so high that you can't afford to save any money. So this sort of route by which younger left-wing people became older right-wing people is fundamentally broken now, which could quite possibly mean that the Tories, unless they can concentrate our minds to think only of woke issues or, you know, the dinghies and stuff like that to, you know, bring out our inner ire, then they're going to be out forever.
Nick, the other thing is, like, you got Corella Doberman, yeah? Right? She was... people, you know, a child of immigrants, right? Suddenly you put her in a position where she's gone against all, you know, brown people or immigrants, yeah? You got James Cleverly and all these...
They're all alike in that regard, and I know where you're going. It's like, me and my family, we can come in, but as soon as we're in, pull up the drawbridge. Yeah. Ranjit, I've got to go, and so do you. Answer that phone. Somebody's desperate for some... Maybe they left some chips behind. 0345 6060 973. Yeah, I left about 3 or 4 bags of chips on your counter, man. Can I come back and collect them? Steve says, square one, NHS, best patient satisfaction, Sure Start, libraries, swimming pools, community centres with mentors, youth leaders, just having something to do after school and looking forward to it, says Steve. Yes. That's right. And then they complain about the youth running wild after they have taken all of the things for youths to do away. It's the trick that they play over and over and over again. I mean, it's almost worth trying to think of one single thing that we value that they haven't pulled the same trick with. Defund it, then blame that institution for not being able to cope, and then tell them to sell off all their stuff in order to balance the books. I mean, absolutely everything fits into that that scenario, doesn't it? The police, the NHS, councils, everything. Pauline says, the Welsh gentleman said that the money made from council house sales was supposed to be ploughed back into building new council housing. He was wrong. It was specifically prohibited by Thatcher's hideous government to use the profits made to build more housing. I know, as at the time I was working for a London council in the housing department. I saw firsthand the misery this inflicted on ordinary people, says Pauline. Yeah, and then ordinary people marched out down to the polling station and voted Conservative again. Lee says, we've become a spoilt nation. The mindset overall needs an overhaul. I trust none of them, he says. Greed, greed and more greed. Responsible thinking has gone out of the window. The mindset overall needs an overhaul.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
What in places goes on inside that head of yours?
0345 6060 973. Chris says, my local county council is even thinking of scrapping lollipop patrols and closing the tip to balance its budget. What an absolute disaster, says Chris. Also known, Chris, as the plan is working. And, of course, if you are in a Labour-run council ward, then you will be suffering more than if you were in a Conservative-run council ward, because the Tories have defunded Labour areas by far more than they've defunded their own. But, of course, you would expect that. In 2020, the Guardian figured it out. Labour, of the 50 councils worst hit by austerity, 28 were Labour-run. 6 were Conservative. I mean, they're just not trying to hide it, are they? And then they'll tell us with absolute certainty that up is down and left is right, and what you can see with your own eyes isn't actually happening. All you need to do is believe
this government.
Yeah, anything they say. Colour codes, Brian.
Hi, Nick. I was shocked to find out. I was just thinking about things that could be next on the hit list to be privatised. I thought, well, they'll be privatising the beaches next, but your researchers just said there in certain parts of Brighton where people have got houses on the seafront, you're not allowed to go down. I didn't know that, and I thought, my God.
Yeah, I think that's where the famous people live.
Yeah, it is. It's terrible. I mean, you know what we should do? We should get a raft, put Joseph Rees-Mogg on there, George Osborne, I can't stand that fella. David Cameron, and push them out to sea somewhere, and hopefully the raft will tip over and we'll never see them again.
Just push them out to sea and wish them all the very best. Yeah.
Yeah. They'll be privatising solar power next from the sun. You know, if you have solar panels, you'll be getting charged for using the sunlight.
Yeah, Brian, if they could charge us for light, they would have done that already.
Yeah.
If you don't stump up, then you get no sun, ever.
Out they go. We must get rid of these clowns for good.
Right.
Send Boris Johnson on that raft as well. I forgot about him. Hold them on the raft.
Yeah. That's one too many people on that relatively small raft.
Well, that's a good thing. He might sink it then, mightn't he? Hopefully.
Quite possibly, yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Brian. A vivid imagination. Jim says, here, the council merged its operations, going from operating 2 sites to just 1. What a total non-surprise, then, when Conservative councillors voted to sell the vacant buildings and the vast amount of surrounding land to developers. A proposal to convert them into community arts and leisure facilities was thrown out because where's the profit in doing that? And I knew that's where that sentence was going before I got to the end of it. I mean, a proposal to convert them into community arts and leisure facilities, and then you don't really need to read the rest of that sentence to know where it's going. No one was remotely interested in converting them into something that would benefit the community. We need to convert it into something that benefits the donor class. Because it's all about the money, honey. And it's just amazing that we are just sitting back and shrugging our shoulders and going, oh, well, never mind. Like somebody's come into our house and they've stolen the stereo and they've waltzed off with the television and they've turned all the taps on and put the plugs in the bath and the water is pouring down the staircase and we're still sitting on the sofa going, oh, well, could be worse. Tooting. Hello, Jan.
Oh, hi, good evening.
Yes, Jan.
Yeah, so I'm ringing, just like to make... I want to say about how wonderful it was to hear Joan, the lady, the 93-year-old, speaking about how Labour was building up the country and how we need that now. But I was ringing to say something specifically about this business about rugby. It's just that it has... I mean, you know, everyone does a little bit of, trip down memory lane, but it's just that it figured on my reading list at my primary school, Tom Brown School Days, and that was based in that rugby school. But what I wanted to focus on was how that rugby school was established in the 16th century, and it was it wasn't private school, it was a grammar school then, free grammar school, state school, but not state. But anyway,
what are you talking about, Jan?
I'm going around in circles.
Aren't you?
I was ringing to say something about muscular Christianity.
Going around in circles, like we're
let me come to the point I'm going to make.
Circulating the drain. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, let me come to the point because we need something to rescue the country now, you know. But in the 19th century, this rugby was associated with muscular Christianity, you know, instilling values of athleticism.
Muscular Christianity.
Yeah, that was what was behind rugby, the game, and the school. In the 19th century, it was to rescue the church at the time. They thought it was becoming effeminate, and to rescue the church and the country from sloth and urban decay with industrialisation.
They thought the church was becoming effeminate.
Yeah, and they thought men needed to become more muscular. I mean, it was a moral thing, you know. So it was athleticism, patriotism, and religion coming together to save the country.
Well, that sounds like a toxic brew to me. What's that got to do with Jesus?
No. I mean, it was that. I don't know. What would it have to? They said the church needed reforming.
Yeah.
Then it was.
Well, you get no argument from me there.
And rugby school.
But what has this got to do with anything, though?
No, because you were talking about it's just really you were talking about rugby earlier.
Yeah.
And how the players are claiming damage for brain damage.
Yeah.
But it happens with football as well because the head of the footballers headers.
Yeah. Particularly with the old footballs, because they used to weigh a ton, especially when they were wet.
Yeah. But what I find quite extraordinary is that this game, rugby, how it's been drained of all its original.
Muscular Christianity-ness.
Yeah, the Christianity, how it's been drained of all of that.
Well, I don't see what it's got to do with Christianity. It's just a bunch of steroidal freaks running into each other.
That's how we see it now. Yeah, that's what it had become. But it was they had some high.
It had something to do with Jesus. Well, I can't really fathom what that might be, other than de-swishifying the clergy.
No, because they thought the church was becoming effeminate, and they wanted.
And what is it about a lot of men in dresses that made them think that?
No, well, it was just I don't know. It's a very famous school. The Tom Brown. Have you heard of Tom Brown's School Days?
Yeah.
It was set in that school. I mean, it was written about that
right,
school.
But I don't. Yeah, I know. But and so I don't really know where you're going with this. What is the issue that you called in to illuminate?
Because I just think it's extraordinary that the school. It's all the opposite now because they took girls into this school. It's a co-ed school, and they're even encouraging women to play rugby, which I think. Well, I won't say my opinion, but I mean it's quite extraordinary that because it's gone the opposite way of it's being emptied of anything of what it used to be.
Right. So less muscular, macho Christianity. Is that what you're saying?
No, I know it's just the way how it's changed. Like as you say, what is it? I think it's I don't know what it is about the game. It's a bit wild.
Well, it doesn't seem like a game to me. I mean, don't games normally have rules? There doesn't seem to be any rules. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I suppose a few people like watching it. I can't really fathom why. There doesn't seem to be any skill involved. I just don't get it as a sport, and particularly as a spectator sport. I mean, it's not a patch on football, and their respective popularities would illuminate that fact. I mean, you could get a bus full of people to go and watch a rugby match, but you would need a train to carry the people to a football match. So that whole rugby thing, it's a no from me.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Hello, boys.
Nick. Listen, now, and what I'm trying to say to you is this, Nick, right?
Chris texts, the worst PE lesson was cross-country, usually in the pouring rain, followed by lukewarm showers. I often wondered, was cross-country lessons because the teacher was hungover? Yeah, you kids just go run around a bit. Cross-country. Yeah, that seems like a cruel and unusual punishment, doesn't it? Pete says, I am fascinated by two of your comments. Lots of people will vote for a party, the Conservatives, at the next election, which will do nothing for them. Please tell me which party will do something for us, poor bleeps. Second, you ask where's the money gone. Do you not remember furlough? Furlough. Yeah, well, I could ask where has the furlough money gone? Because billions of pounds of that just disappeared into the ether, and Titchy Suit Size just shrugged his shoulders and go, oh, well, never mind, it's gone now. Best not ask any questions, eh? It's for the best. He's been very clear about that. Very clear.
I'm genuinely unclear.
Yeah, me too, Liz. Genuinely unclear. Matlock. Metin.
Hi, Nick. You all right?
Yes, good, thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you my insight about the Tories defunding everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I work as a carer, and I deal with a lot of mental health related caring responsibilities. And in my area, North Derbyshire, in the last few years, two major mental health care support institutions and providers have shut down, and the main reason was always due to the lack of funding. Recently, our local, community mental health team have informed us that they basically have gone bust, and the lady that works there, she basically was told that you have to work harder, as everything is now, target driven, and I just thought that was absolutely outrageous. Like everything is just broken. Who
is presenting her with targets?
Well, the organization that she works for. I know it's an NHS organization as well, right. And the targets are basically how many home visits you have to make to each client.
And the reason that a government will institute targets is not to improve the situation. It's just for them to have a sort of ammunition to say, under our munificent leadership, look at the targets we've met.
I know, and the funny thing is that currently she's the only one. She's the only person in our area that is a qualified CMHT. Like she's running, there's just one person for the whole area now.
And this is Derbyshire County Council?
I believe so. I'm not completely familiar with the ins and outs.
Because I'm just looking at a list of councils that are in trouble, and Derbyshire County Council is £46 million.
Red. Yeah, they also said they were looking at, selling more assets to plug the funding. Yeah, it's just, the whole situation is just absurd. And just one last thing, the person I'm caring for, he also has mental health problems, and he's been diagnosed with autism, and he's been waiting for a specialist counsellor because he needs long-term care. The doctors and everything, they agree that this is the help he needs. He's been waiting 3 years now and counting, and basically because of the lack of funding in our area, the specialist counselling that he really needs doesn't exist. So now we're in a situation where they're employing, private specialists that cost a lot more money. They charge between 70 to 130 pounds per hour.
Yes.
And that's psychological hour. And it's just, the whole situation is just completely absurd and broken.
It's just a succession of plasters that they put over a wound without actually dealing with the problem. That's all the way through the NHS now. They rent doctors. Instead of hiring them, they rent them at about 10 times the price, but they rent them for 1 or 2 days, and it doesn't go on their yearly budget under personnel. It goes on under some other heading, so that they can say, "Well, look at the money we've saved."
Yeah, it's just the whole situation is just very frustrating.
Yeah,
and
I bet.
And it's very heartbreaking to see that people who really need help just can't get it. They're just stuck in this loop of forever waiting, and they get promised, we're gonna be helping soon, and nothing happens, and it's just one hurdle or one wall to climb over.
Yeah.
Or especially if you want to access funding that might exist to help people, and you just get sorry, I'm a bit nervous. First time caller.
No, doing particularly well.
Thanks. But it's just I feel like everything is always sort of stacked against you.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I love your show. I always listen to it. It makes me very chuckle.
Well, that's nice of you to say so. And on behalf of Brits who don't want to do that kind of work, we appreciate your efforts, Metin.
Thank you. That's all. I mean,
well, thank you. And what's kind of dispiriting is that there's a significant amount of people who would say to that chap, why don't you go back to where you came from? But rather overlooking the part about him doing the jobs that we need done, but we don't want to do ourselves. Metin, thanks for that. Yeah, Derbyshire County Council, £46 million. They introduced a raft of cuts in September to plug a £46 million funding gap. The Mirror listed councils which are in trouble. And in a brief 3-hour show, I don't have time to list them all. It's pretty much all of them. Bath and North East Somerset. Isn't that where works?
I don't know anything.
6.5 million. Councillors blamed a drop in central government funding for the budget gap. Bournemouth, 45 million funding gap. Bradford, 103 million. Brent, 8 million. Brighton, 31 million. Bury, 22.6 million. Chelmsford, 4.2 million. Cheshire, 11 million. Cotswolds, 1.3 million. Coventry, 30 million. Derbyshire, 46 million. I mean, if you live in any of these places, have they taken the money and spent it on solid gold statues of the dear leader? I mean, have they just thrown it away? Have they spent millions of pounds on rainbow-coloured traffic lights? No, they're just about barely getting by, trying to provide the things that their constituents, their locals would rely on and expect for the money that's being spent. But they just can't keep up because the funding overall is a shortfall of, in this year, £1.2 billion. And the government's saying that, don't worry, we're funding them, local councils, more than any time in history. Or it's 86% more than the previous Labour administration, which is just these nonsense numbers that they pluck out of the air, and you don't have, or the interviewer at the time doesn't have anything to come back at them with, because this is the first time they've heard those numbers. It's very difficult to argue against a series of figures that you've never heard or seen before. So they just make this stuff up, knowing that they can skip away from the interview at the end, having won, and then the fact checkers come out, and a day later they'll say, aha, well, you got that wrong. But in the meantime, they've done 5 other interviews and spread 20 more lies around the place. It's all so, what would Donald Trump do?
Oh, shut up!
It really is. 0345 6060 973. Greg says, water bills, council tax up 6%. Water bills, council tax up 6%. Maybe water bills and council tax up 6%. But don't worry, headlines in the Express, Hunt set to cut 1p of national insurance contribution. That puts our minds at rest, says Greg. who, on the basis of how he constructs a sentence, I'd have to say his mind is not at rest. I mean, it's just a guess on my part, but this is probably how Greg's mind sounds. Not at rest. Bob says, that's the standard technique of privatisation. Defund, make sure things do not work. People get angry, and you hand it over to private capital. Yeah, that's about right. That is precisely what is happening. And it's just remarkable how frequently that simple trick works. But they do it over and over and over again. What's left? What is left, apart from the few things that councils can sell off in order to put a sticking plaster over the gaping hole in their budget this year? Because you don't make 40, 60 million pounds just by selling a few things here and there. I mean, that's just cleaning out the cupboard, isn't it? And that will only plug the gap this year. So what are they going to do next year? What are they going to sell off next year, having sold off everything already? But, you know, by then the Conservative Party won't be in power. They'll be lobbing stones from the side, blaming Labour for everything that's wrong with this country. And they will do that on day one. The first day that they're out of power, they'll blame everything, and not just the Conservative Party, but, of course, all of the newspapers and the media organisations that are in their corner. They'll all blame Labour. Look at this mess, they'll say, as they close the door to number 10 after them. What a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
What number are you calling from?
0345 6060 973. Let's have a call in Yorkshire. Mike.
Hi, Nick. Yeah. Came across something as rare as hen's teeth this week, Nick.
Oh, yes.
And that was a full honest Johnson confession.
What did he confess to?
Right. The programme was a documentary about the first few weeks of the Ukraine conflict.
Oh, yeah.
And it was made up of clips at the time, the speeches the leaders made. And then they interviewed the leaders sometime later and asked for explanations of it. And Mr. Blobby's on this. And so he was asked about sanctions. And he actually said, live on this documentary, he said, yeah, well, of course, we were trying to persuade all nations to put sanctions on Russia. And in order for us to be credible, we realised that we would have to remove the dirty Russian money from London.
What? He said that?
He said that. Now, that tells you three things. A, it was there, which we all knew.
Yeah.
B, he knew about it. And C, he'd chosen not to act on it.
Yes, that's true. He probably didn't think that through when he said it. He probably thought he was saying a good thing that would paint him in a good light.
But this was BBC. It was Putin versus the West. And I actually came out and said it, and I jaw hit the floor. I thought, you idiot, you've just admitted to knowing about it.
Yeah.
You just, sometimes you just can't, we know what happens. And like you're saying about defunding the councils and then blaming them, we know it happens, but it's difficult to actually prove it to policy.
Yes.
But he just said it out loud. He just
blurts it out loud, yeah. Well, he's so used to getting away with it, isn't he? It probably hasn't occurred to him that anything he says might come back to bite him on the bottom.
No, it's quite worrying that he could become leader. And Sunak, amazingly, Sunak's a lot harder. Johnson's speeches I could translate instantly from lies to truth. Sunak's you have to weigh up at the end and cross-reference things because he's a bit more subtle. But he lies just as much as, or misleads just as much as Johnson does.
Definitely, yes. You can't believe a word that man says on any subject. I wouldn't trust him to pick out a cashmere hoodie.
No, and another one that's brilliant, David Davis had been pushing him around the studios this week.
Yeah.
And he confronted some of the interviewers and he did exactly what you said. He whacked a load of facts at them.
Yes.
Which were wrong, and they weren't actually lies. But he'd say, "Oh, GDP improved, blah de blah de blah."
Yeah.
But the point was, he just quoted one date. But when GDP did improve, didn't relate to that date. It implied it did, but didn't actually. And the interviewer stood no chance unless you...
Half-truths and mendacity, that's right. You need a computer program and a team of about, a dozen people fact-checking them in real time so that you can throw back contrary information that proves that they're lying. But you can't have that. It's impossible. It takes a while, and this is why Donald Trump does precisely what the Tories are trying to pull off now. He just peppers you with so much, what's a polite way of saying BS?
Chaff, Johnson called it.
Chaff. Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing. He admitted doing that too. He said, you just bury them under this mound of misinformation and they don't know where to look and what to check on first, and then you can just float away and get away with it. He actually, not using those precise words, but he admitted that that's what he does.
Yeah, and people should listen.
Yes, when they tell you who they are, believe them the first time. Quite right. All right, good work. Thanks a lot, Mike. Don't let them get away with it. Got to have your eyes open and your ears pricked at all times. 0345 6060 973. Have I done the break?
Yes, you have, mate.
I have?
Yeah.
Wow. Can you believe that?
No.
I am ahead of schedule. Were you talking to me just now, or that person that was in there?
I was talking to you, mate.
Oh, talking to me. Are you talking to me? Well, I don't see anybody else here. Maidstone. Rob.
Hello, Nick. How are you this morning?
Yes, great, mate.
So I thought, as it's the Brexit anniversary, we can celebrate. We are world leading in something.
Oh, finally. 4 years old.
We've moved right up the international corruption rankings.
Yes.
So I thought I could share a couple of the highlights.
Go on.
So the former treasurer of the Conservative Party is the single biggest recipient of the new North Sea oil and gas licenses. That the Plymouth Brethren's Interiors Company got a 618 million rand PPE contract after they lobbied Michael Gove. We have the highest level of corruption in our local authorities in recorded history. And the new Council of Business for Rishi Sunak has between them £900 million worth of fines for breaking regulations and for insider trading.
Wow.
So how's that for us? How's that for... We can get something right.
I think that's something to be going along with, Rob. It seems like a start.
Well, I took your advice. I took your advice and pricked my ears up and started actually reading and going, that's quite frightening, really, because we keep being told there's no money.
Well,
there wouldn't be
that's the reason why.
It all.
Exactly. Yeah.
And would you like one more really good one, just to upset some of your Conservative listeners?
Okay, then.
So Rishi and his missus own 1% of Infosys, who at present have £17 million worth of public sector contracts and have been put on the preferred suppliers list, giving them access to £750 million worth of contracts.
Yeah, that is all a complete coincidence, Sir Rob. It's just, it's just fortunate for all the people concerned that they happen to be the best people for the task at hand. Thanks a lot, Rob. 0345 6060 973. Kevin says Tories encouraging local authorities to sell off their assets. You have to wonder who is buying it all. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out at some point that the Tories are tipping their mates the wink, a la Ms. Money, etc. Who's Ms. Money? Am I missing something?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I'll find out now.
See, he's going to put it into the computer and see what it says. Well, even if that's not true, what is extraordinary is that a large number of... I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the majority of the people in this country now just assume that it's true, that we are being ripped off by the party that is running this country, and that they're doing so for their personal benefit. Even if that's not true, it's an extraordinary thing that that people think that it is, assume that it is, would be surprised if they found that it wasn't true. Don't you think that's an incredible place to be? I don't remember ever thinking that of a regime, no matter who they were, at any point in my life up to this. But now that people just assume that that's what's happening, and our collective attitude is, oh, well, never mind, mustn't grumble. That's just an extraordinary place to be, isn't it? I mean, you would assume that that's possible in, like, third world countries. I mean, you would say that, people who are living in some tin pot third world dictatorship, they would just assume that all the tax money they pay goes straight into the pockets of the dictator. But that's not really Britain, is it? Until now, when that is precisely what people think. It's just amazing that we've got to this point. With Mr. Integrity in charge yet.
This government will have integrity, professionalism and accountability at every level.
Every level.
Liar!
Yeah, every level. And absolutely everything that he's said since is as believable as that. Amazing, really, that they found someone worse than him.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
And then they found someone worse than her.
Absolutely.
Good grief. I am stunned. And I am stunned. Bodmin. Hello, Malcolm.
Hello, Nick. How are you, sir?
Yes, good, thanks.
Bringing in about Starmer and Powell and the fact that he could shoot somebody on what's the name of Piccadilly, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And still not very apprehended by the law. There are a lot of polls out this week, Nick, and he's moving ahead. And all we're getting is 28 billion. Every other sentence.
Yeah.
28 billion. And the guy's moving ahead of them. It's unbelievable. I don't think we've ever had a situation where a ruling party is as bad as this.
They're sort of unanchored, aren't they? They're just being blown around on a choppy sea, rudderless.
Yeah, but I mean, their worst efforts, Nick. And well, one assumes that you use the tools you got at the time you need them. Well, when the Labour Party this week alone have moved up 3 points in the polls. Reform have moved up 2 or 3 points in the polls, for heaven's sake. It's unbelievable, Nick. And I don't know what's wrong with the country. I mean, you would have called her last week calling me a ding-a-ling, for heaven's sake. I mean, the country must have gone nuts.
Why would they call you a ding-a-ling?
A Remainer, Nick.
A Ramona?
Yeah, I'm a Ramona. I'm an anti-misogynist. I'm an anti-racist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a former school teacher, so I'm all for young people, I have to say.
Well, it sounds like you do the wokey-cokey to me.
Okie dokie.
And I've got someone up in, is it Oldbury or somewhere like that, reckoning I'm a ding-a-ling. I mean, what is the world coming to?
Well, man? I don't recall that conversation, but I think...
But you've just been reminded, sir.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
But, no, on a serious note, though, Nick, I can't see a single thing. Under Neil Kinnock, I remember the Kinnock years, and obviously I remember the Corbyn years, and you were fearful day on day that somebody was going to say something stupid. Well, I mean, there's nothing left. That the only big policy Labour had was the 28 billion, and they pretty much backtracked on it. Which, under the circumstances, I think is fairly sensible.
Well,
you just say, well, we're not going to be able to do it because you spent all the money, sir.
Right. Well,
so
I don't buy that argument. I think they can do it. They can magic 28 billion out of the air, and if they spend it on green investment, which never mind about climate change or anything like that, you spend 28 billion on creating new industry, and you will create wealth. You take 28 billion and you just put it into the pockets of your party donors, and you will not create wealth except in Panama and the Bahamas.
It will happen, Nick, because it's one of those things. And you hear the people on LBC on the right. I mean, lovely people, your Thomas Warbricks, your Nick Ferraris. Even these people are saying we need to back our industry. We need to invest. The government needs to help people to invest.
Yeah.
And on my thing, like, if I could just clear up, because I think there were two callers last week who I confused slightly with my call. My call was simply to say that I want, as a former school teacher, British kids at British universities, be they black, brown, of Oriental persuasion, whatever, Nick. I'm for British people getting British jobs, places in British universities. If there are any spare, bring them in. Bring as many people into this country as you want. But I'm I think, reasonably level-headed.
Right.
I think.
But you're not talking about staff. You're talking about students.
I'm talking about students.
Right. Okay. Well, the problem with that is, as we probably discussed last time, and I'm running out of time on this one because I'm past the break. When you decrease the number of people who spend a fortune in our universities, then you will increase the amount that locals have to pay for the same thing, because the universities have got fixed costs and they need to be met. And if they're getting a lot of high spending foreign students, then that will see them through.
But the point is, Nick, and just to finalise, the point for me is this: universities are not going backwards. Universities are spending huge sums of money every year. They're underpaying their lecturers. They're overcharging the students. And the problem is, Nick, the coffers of universities are not becoming shallower. They're becoming fuller and fuller and deeper and deeper.
Now, but is that all universities, or is it just the big famous ones, the Russell Group?
I would say it's the bulk of British universities, Nick.
Well, okay, I'd like to see the facts. I'd like to see the figures. Malcolm, I've got to go, but you made your point. Thanks for that.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
You.
How may I help you? 0345 6060 973. Let's have a call in beautiful downtown St Albans. Steve.
Hello?
Yes, Steve.
Oh, Nick, yeah. Sorry, I drifted away there slightly.
Shall I put you on hold?
Yeah, you can do, yeah.
How long do you need?
I don't know. I'll ring me back in a minute.
I'll ring you back in a minute. That's exactly what I'll do. 0345 6060 973. John says, could Barry Maguire, the Barry Maguire song from 1965, Eve of Destruction, about to become true? It looks like a number of countries are intent on starting to attack USA bases or ships. And with Russia wanting to take over countries beyond their borders, if somebody gets seriously trigger-happy, who knows where it will end? Well, I've just been reading the lyrics of Eve of Destruction, and it's a little bit spooky. The Eastern world, it is exploding. Violence faring, bullets loading. And the G is deliberately, that's how it's written. Exploding apostrophe. You're old enough to kill, but not for voting. You don't believe in war, but what's that gun you're toting? And even the Jordan River has bodies floating. See? Spooky. But you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, how you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. What a beautiful singing voice. Yeah, never mind about Eve. And all that misery was put to a jaunty pop tune. I really do need to start listening to lyrics because, I had an idea that it was, like an anti-war song, but not that it was that specific. Yeah, well, never mind about that. How about Country Joe and the Fish? Whoopee! We're all gonna die. St Albans. Hello, Steve.
Sorry, Nick. It hasn't come to me. I think I'm too tired. Sorry. Another day.
Another day. Well, I'll put it in my diary. Another day, at some point in the future. Excellent work there, Steve. He knew that he couldn't do it, and he gave up instantly. If at first you don't succeed, give up. That's Steve's words of wisdom. Kevin says, Tories encouraging local authorities, etc., to sell off assets. Oh, I've read this one, but it's worth reading again. He says, you have to wonder who is buying it all. I wouldn't be surprised if we found out at some point that the Tories are tipping their mates the wink, a la Ms. Money, etc. So I still don't know what that a la Ms. Money is. But yes, don't make me repeat myself, that's what this country just assumes is happening now. Even if it isn't true, it's amazing that that is the assumption that we make. And I cannot think of a single other government in history that people would automatically assume that that's where the money is going, into the friends and into the pockets of friends and donors. Let's have Dagenham, Verrol.
Yep.
Yes, Verrol.
I am a serious Barry Maguire fan. I've been sending that record out to a lots and lots of people.
Oh, yes.
With the video to go with it as well.
And what's the video like?
Just like the song, Eve of Destruction.
Right. There's a lot of clips of, is it a lot of clips of the Vietnam War?
Yeah, clips of all different kind of atrocities that's happened.
Great.
I tell you, I've sent it out so many times.
Well, don't send it to me.
You sound as if you already know about it.
Yeah.
Because when you started the bit about it, the Eastern world is so it was whatever. I can't even remember the words.
I've got them right here in front of my face. The Eastern world, it is exploding.
That's it.
Yes.
That is it. And I don't know what the hell is going on, but America is playing silly buggers, and Iran is playing silly buggers, and Iraq is playing silly buggers, and Britain is going to end up playing silly buggers as well.
Why can't people just get along? Coagulating is a word in the lyrics of that song, which is probably the only song in history that has used the word coagulating as part of its lyrics.
Well, I'm 73 years old.
73 years old.
The only time I've heard that word is in that song.
In that song, yeah. My blood so mad feels like coagulating.
That's it.
Rhymed with, I'm sitting here just contemplating.
Yep. And I can't believe what is it?
And you tell me... Sing.
Over and over again, my friend. On the eve of destruction.
Eve of destruction. That's right.
Even today.
But they've been telling us that we're on the eve of destruction ever since I can recall.
Yeah, well, I think the eve has finally landed.
Well, people have always thought that.
Finally landed.
Yeah, right. But people have always thought that. Oh, this time they're serious. This time they really are going to blow the world up. But, still not so far. Not yet.
Well, my wife's got cancer.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Beryl.
I was told that I might have cancer as well. I'm going in for it on the 26th to be checked to see if I have got it as well.
Well, it's like one in 3 or 1 in 4 of us.
Yeah, let's stop worrying about cancer. Because the bomb's going to get us soon, so not to worry about the cancer.
Yeah, cheer up, dear.
No, but I'm not in a cheer-up mood.
Right.
The bomb is going to get us soon.
Right, okay, well, it's forthcoming attractions, and if you wait long enough, it'll probably come true, but I wouldn't put money on it being any time soon. But I wish you all the best, you and yours. Thanks a lot, Beryl. 0345 6060 973. Johnny text, didn't Joris Bonson once charge into a 10-year-old child and knock him over while holding a rugby ball? That was pretty funny, says Johnny. Seeing a flabby, effeminate, blonde pensioner find an opponent he could actually defeat was quite moving.
The great big greedy nincompoop.
Yeah, the great big greedy nincompoop charged into a 10-year-old child and knocked him off his feet, as though he was engaged in a serious contest, as opposed to a PR shoot. He used to be the Prime Minister of this country. Can you believe that?
No.
It's just amazing what we've been put through. It's like a cruel and unusual punishment. Somebody get the UN on the phone. I need to make a report. Plymouth. Hello, Julie.
Hello, Nick. I think the UN are a bit busy at the moment.
Are they?
But we'll put you on a file.
Put me on hold. Yeah.
Yes. Have you had a good week?
I have.
Good. Nick, I've always known that you're a good human being, but this has cemented it for me.
Oh, yes.
Oh, just before I go any further, sending best to your last caller's wife and himself.
Yes.
But when I hear that intro, I'm going to do it. Am I going to do it?
Bum, 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 bum,
I have to get up. Yeah, I mean, exactly. So I've heard you mention it a few times about skipping sports and going and
play that funky music by Wild Cherry.
It's brilliant. And
I just associate that smoky environment in the basement of the cafe around the corner from my school with that song, and David Bowie when he put the Low album out. That was the soundtrack to my life.
I didn't really get introduced to Mr. Bowie until later because at the time when I heard Wild Cherry, I was only about 10 or 11. I think I was still about 11, like started secondary school. And my brother used to play in a 5-piece band around the social clubs, and him and his wife used to take me now and again. And that's when I first heard that song, and I was like, and it stuck with me forever. I love it. If I'm anywhere and I hear it in a pub, or I think even probably shopping, I sing along to it.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I'm grooving.
You
love
are
it still.
Grooving. And the thing is, name another song by Wild Cherry.
I can't.
You can't. But people deride one-hit wonders. Now, it might not necessarily be even the best song that they made. But even if it was, even if they only made one song that was a hit, that is more than almost anybody else that has ever lived. You've got the whole world singing your song. I mean, how great is that?
Exactly. It's a classic. I mean, even though it was just one, I'm sure they made others, but that one, as you say, for so many people of a certain age. And I mean, I remember introducing it to some young people at a party and saying to the DJ, because they were sort of playing sort of funk and that, and I was like,
hippity
do you know
hip
this
hop
song?
Music.
Yes, and it was like, do you know this? And they loved it, and they were like, oh, I love this. Who's this? And I think they probably disappointed just one song.
Well, I've mentioned this before, but I used to be a DJ in a record store, the Virgin Megastore on Oxford Street, when it was like many years ago, and I used to. I was quite popular with the kids who worked there because I would play all sorts of music and not just the top 20, which some of the other DJs there did. I'd put everything in there. And every now and again I'd slip in The Visitors by Abbot, which doesn't...
I love that.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like ABBA at all, really.
No.
And I'd have kids come in with green hair and bolts through their faces going, "Hey, Nick, what's this?" And I tell them it's ABBA, and watch the look on their faces as it fell.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I know that one of the tracks on that Visitors album was done by the Pet Shop Boys, I think. No, it wasn't. Was it Le Mans? Or the day before she came, or he came.
I have no idea. That's the only one that I'm playing in my house.
Oh, Nick, I'm loving that. You've made my night.
Okay.
Nick, just want to say before I go that
and in closing,
you have some of the best listeners and the best callers.
Right.
And you keep doing your best, my lovely.
It's all I've got, Julie. My best. Thanks a lot. Cheers, my dear.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
We are running late. Let's have, let me see now, who's been waiting the longest. I'll be totally fair about this. Burton-on-Trent. Hello, Darren.
Hi. You okay?
Yes, good, thanks.
First time caller.
Good man.
Yeah, I just want to talk about life as it is.
Life
is in Britain right now.
Don't talk to me about life.
It's dire, and it's embarrassing, and it's sad. Great Britain. It's true. It's just so true.
Dire, embarrassing, and sad. We should put that on the tourist posters.
You have to do something about it.
Me?
We'll only get worse. No, we.
Oh, we. Right, we. Oh, well, I wouldn't wait for anybody else to join
in. When you say it's about their kids, then they should.
They should do, yes.
That's where the investment should go.
They should
whatever you
do.
invest in green, half that and put it back into the kids, which they took away from our kids. They took the youth clubs, anything that was basically for socialising with the kids, they took it away.
Yes, well, kids
Now
don't
they're
vote
nothing.
Tory, so that's what you get.
Because kids don't even vote voting is unless they see it on TikTok. We've lost our kids.
No,
Kids to our
no.
phones.
Well, yes and no. I mean, if they're lost in TikTok, then fill TikTok with better stuff.
But there's no... That's the problem in our life. There's no monitoring of social media for kids.
No.
Before they...
I think that is one of the most dangerous things that is facing humankind, is that our minds and our thoughts and our beliefs are being taken over and essentially poisoned by social media, which means that increasingly the people who run social media are actually determining what it is that the human race is thinking. And then you think about who those people are who are running social media, and it's about 4 people, all of whom are weird. So the thought patterns of the human race are being dictated to by about 4 weirdos who you would not leave in charge with your dog, never mind about the minds of your children. So I think that we have to address that at some point, because there's absolutely no question that kids are as addicted to social media and their phones as they would be if they had been taking heroin for the past year straight. They cannot put them away. And I know I bellyached about this in the past, but it just drives me insane in the gym when they just come in and they occupy a machine for half an hour just scrolling through their blooming phones, which they can't put away. They find it impossible. Which means they are utterly hooked, and no one's doing the slightest thing about it. These weirdos have just marched in, and in about a decade, they've taken over the human race. That's not too much of an exaggeration. Wait till this generation now, teenagers now, wait till they grow up. You think they're going to give up their phones? No. They won't do that any more than an alcoholic will give up the booze the older they get. Of course they won't. So it's happened already, and no one did anything about it. Darren, got to go. Thanks for that. Woking. Hello, Jeff.
Morning, Nick. I can remember 1965 going into my local record store and buying The Eve of Destruction by Barry Maguire.
Yes.
Now, I was only 12 at the time, but I couldn't remember I couldn't understand all the words at that time, but of course I've since grown to love it. It was number 3 in the UK and number 1 in America. He was a one-hit wonder, you know.
Mm.
But he had been previously with the New Christy Minstrels of One Wheel on My Wagon.
Oh, no, I do remember that. God, I haven't heard that in, I don't know, like 40 years.
Can you remember the words?
One wheel on my wagon, but I'm still rolling along. Yeah.
Rock and roll! Yeah. And I'll tell you what, there's another one, Nick, that you might recall.
Mm-hmm.
The Universal Soldier by Donovan.
No.
Well, that was also 1965. It wasn't a single, it was an EP, the title track of an EP.
No.
And it was written by the Native American Buffy St. Marie.
Oh, yeah, I remember her.
And Donovan did a definitive version of that. I would check it out as homework.
Because we're absolutely not going to do that. No, but when have you ever heard of another person called Buffy? The Vampire Slayer. The Vampire Slayer, of course.
Of course, yeah. Another one she did,
and another one
more recently, was The Big Ones Get Away. I think you'd like that.
Not sure about the content of that song. I'm going to have to look that one up.
It's very good. It's called The Big Ones Get Away. 1992, Buffy St. Marie.
Right, definitely
a
not
genuine American, Native American.
Sure, okay. If you say so.
Have a good weekend.
And you, Jeff. Thanks for the good advice, which I will not take. I don't want to, and you can't make me. Tamworth, Andy.
Hello.
Andy.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
I thought you could use some cheering up, you know.
Who, me?
So I thought I'd give it a go.
Great. Yeah. So you're not going to talk about the end of the world as we know it, and you feel fine.
Well, there's a lot of doom, destruction, war, pestilence, and all of it going on, apparently.
Yes.
But I have to say, today I was chatting to a researcher and said I was wandering around Glastonbury in the sun, had a nice cappuccino. Now, I've got song lyrics. Can you tell me the song?
Oh, no, wait a minute.
Or should I just tell you the song?
No, is this a game?
Well, it's a little quiz. Quick one. When Mercury rises in the 7th house, when Saturn aligns with Mars, now which song does that bring to mind from the 60s?
It's that thing from Hair, Aquarius.
You've got it in one.
Wow.
You're very good at quizzes.
So what do I get?
Start of a 10. Well, I don't know. You're smiling inside now, aren't you?
What? It depends what I get.
Well, what do you want?
A car. I want the car.
Oh, well, you got the car then. Yeah. What do you want then?
Well, you
okay.
You do understand that this would constitute a contract between us.
Oh, we better not do it then.
You will actually have to furnish me with the car of my choice.
Oh, they'll have us, won't they? Is it an Ofcom situation?
Definitely not, Andy. No, you don't want to take that to them. You don't want to bother them. Very, very busy people.
We'll cancel the car, but you won anyway because you guessed the song from the 60s.
Okay, well, then I'll reward myself with a bar of chocolate later at my leisure. Thanks a lot, Andy. Don't do games. Hadley, Rob.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Yes, Rob.
It was just something I was thinking about the other day. It was just like back in the 70s and that, there was sort of like 3 or 4 channels.
Yeah.
And you go into school and you talk about the programme you saw.
Yes.
And everybody had something to talk about and discuss. And sort of now, sort of everybody just goes down their own rabbit hole with the internet and everything. And it's just sort of splintered the social consciousness, I suppose.
Yeah, there's no...
What do you reckon?
There's no sort of water... They call them water cooler moments, don't they? Where everybody gathers around the water cooler at the office and they talk about, whatever it was on telly last night. But nobody's watching TV live anymore. And people's viewing habits have splintered because there's 86,000 channels now with nothing on.
Correct.
Thanks, Rob. And on the subject of the missing money, Rachel texts, set Vorders on the case of the missing trillions. She's good with numbers. Well, you know what? You don't have to be a numbers genius to be good at maths. It just takes a little application. And this is the thing that the kids don't understand. They don't seem to have grasped that mathematics just takes a little bit of application. Once learned, never forgotten. 6 eighths are 52. 9 divided by 3 is 6. The square root of 2 is 1. An idiot could do it. 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 Idiot